DevOps Dispatch presents Voices from the Industry.
These are not paid actors.
We're coming here live from Austin, Texas, UT campus, DevOps Days 2024. Can you imagine? You started this back in 2012, but Ernest and Karthik, could you imagine that this would still be going on in 2024?
Yeah, no, that is a surprise. Yeah, it's like back in the first one was up at National Instruments.
I remember
Road.
well, yeah.
And it really hit something with people. And I think that we saw kind of the DevOps movement really kind of grow in the city, and we really always liked that we were trying to do DevOps, but we always had this like real practitioner flair to it. That was something that Ernest Clark and I talked about a lot. We was like, we really want this to be like where security comes, where like big data comes. We want like DevOps to be like meaningful and not just kind of like too idealistic. And it could sometimes be, especially in those early days, because it was supposed to be back then. We were trying to figure out what it was.
But at the same time, you guys really came up with it. I mean, you came up with it. So, right, if you had a problem, you thought, oh, this stuff sounds good. And you were practitioners. You even come in sort of as academics and try to learn them that way. So that's very cool. In fact, I was thinking, someone was saying today in a talk about the cloud is to DevOps the way AI will be to security. I don't remember who said. Oh, that wasn't you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in.
That's a good troll right there. Yeah,
exactly. So you started your own company about a little over a year ago, January of last year.
Yep.
Dryrun Security, with the Westinghouse logo.
There you go.
And you talked today a lot about AI, which was not what you originally had been billed as. Your talk had a different title, and you called an audible, and you went with something different. But it wasn't just gratuitous. It wasn't just mentioning AI here or there. You actually refocused it around AI and how it works in security. So why don't we just start off with that crazy assertion?
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, first you have to ask, like, what was the cloud to operations? Like, and why did that matter? And we could even start with like, we didn't start there in the talk, where we kind of just hit Agile briefly, but what was Agile to developers? Right. And you kind of have these moves, these technological, or I don't know, moves in people, or how to organize around technology. And my premise was that operations was needed to be part of the Agile story, but didn't have the tools in hand to do these.
You had that great picture of people going over the water.
Yeah, that's right.
What did you use to generate those pictures?
Oh yeah. I made a little GPT in OpenAI, and I call it the DevOps Painter. So you can, it's free. You can access it and make sure if you wanted to. But, yeah.
So yeah, I love that. But anyway,
no.
Back to the Agile.
I couldn't do a talk on AI without the AI art through the whole.
Yeah, it's sort of a recursive acronym of sorts, but not really.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, ops needed virtualization, ops needed cloud, distributed computing, ops needed these types of things to be able to consider the idea of DevOps. And Tom Limoncelli, he's the one who kind of said, back in the day, if you'd asked us in 2012, 2010, what is DevOps? We would have given you an answer, but we would have felt like we've made it. But like Tom Limoncelli kind of had in his book, it's called The System of Cloud Administration. He kind of comments in a way, it's like, well, DevOps is really the outcome of a single human having to manage a distributed environment, where you got to manage 10,000 units. It's an inevitable outcomes that's going to happen when you have such a big technology.
And that's back sort of the time where Puppet and Chef were synonymous with DevOps.
Yeah.
It's sort of I got all these servers. How do I do it? Well, here's the thing. So that must be DevOps.
That's right. Yeah. And we were able to change that. And I had always said, and like, so if you were, I kind of, to do some of this talk for prep for it, I was like replaying and looking at some of my talks that I gave from like 2014 and 15 in that time period. And I was always saying, Barton, that like security is just a little behind. Like security is going to come on, and it's going to make a difference. And I've always kind of held to that. It was like my 3 years turning to 5 years, turning to 7 years. I'm like, well, I don't know, right? And we had DevSecOps. We had this movement called the shift left. But everybody that's kind of experienced to shift left in their organization is like, has full backlogs. They're like, forced developers to like do all the mental parsing that like used to have a security practitioner. And like security sees this overflowing into like outputs and reports and documents coming out of these tools, like from their scanners and their policies and other stuff that's coming on. So I think it's because I was pretty naive to believe that operations and security were so similar. I think they're too disparate to say that like they could just like happily get on like the DevOps train, because it's not just taking a security tool and running it earlier, right? I think that's that is our way to do it. But I think in the end, we're starting to see it's both maybe a little too naive on our parts as an industry in aggregate. I'm not judging any in particular, but it's sort of like that was a good first step to realize like that's not going to come. And I believe it's because operations deals in mostly the bit series D. Uptime, performance, you're trying to look at, log data, metrics, monitoring, what is it? Security still has them. Security has built a whole industry where you build like an operations center and you have a SOC and you have people triaging this, and some organizations, a lot of banks have great SOCs and they know how to deal with it. That big. But the other type of data that security has to deal with a lot is like, I call it document data. For like, whenever like tweaking from like a pull request coming in, a coaching, you have anything like an output from any security tool, but you keep buying more and more security tools because you keep trying to ship left, right? There's more and more output coming in. You have industry news and updates and stuff that's going on. You have standards that change. So security really has a data problem, and we see this to the rise of like the security posture management, whether it's cloud or application or whatever. All the vendors out there right now are trying to say, oh, you got all these tools, so let's just jam all that into like one single pane of glass. And like, it's not horrible, it's not wrong, but it's not the final outcomes we all really want to see. It's not the advancement of things. Security, it is not. It's like you're still kind of just shooing everything together in one place, and you're really trying to put a data solution. But I don't think we've improved where like breaches are getting any better. They haven't made developers any more productive. And application security people that I know still feel like they're still doing this like updating and maintaining. They're trying to like train and build the tools so that they work better. And they're still really strapped for resources. They might, what they want.
Yeah. And I think it was last year there was a focus here on security. Yeah. Because I remember JP, someone I met here who was at Southwest Airlines, and he had taken over, he was doing the cloud group, and then he was doing security within that. And it's this sort of concept that people thought, yeah, security is important, but it's not my job. Yeah. Someone else is going to fix it, so I'm not going to worry about it. But the idea of, it also reminds me of the when they say quality number one, that's what we're going to focus on. It shouldn't be a focus. It should be throughout the whole thing, just like security. It's not like security is something we put in this roof. It should be all throughout the whole process.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we have always found aspired to. I think that's right. I don't disagree with the ecosystem, right? Because it's really kind of taking that model and saying, how do we get everybody, as part of the journey and phrase to story,
right? And so now AI comes in. Okay, right? So when you start about a year and a half, not a year and a half, some few months ago, 14 months ago, I don't know. And when you originally started, where did AI fit into this? Was that a big tenet to begin with, or did it become more and more apparent?
It was always something we were working on, and we're working inside. We had some ways to do like some like route discovery things, and we started working. My co-founder did secure code reviews over at GitHub. Okay, and he teaches like classes at Desktop and Black Hat. And so we knew that like some of the news for AI was promising, and we just kept experimenting with it. We've seen how LLMs can be real great.
Or malicious, right?
They can also be, people are using them for malicious, intent. I think that there's also a lot of worry in the industry of like, where like your data gives poison inside your LLM, and you have all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of security concerns with that. That's normal. That's kind of,
was that something about autonomous LLM hacking?
Yeah, well, there's some research papers on that, right?
Okay.
And some of them
sensational headlines.
Some of them are a little sensational. Some are a little, there's some controversy.
5 things that LMs will do. Number 6 will surprise.
Exactly. So, and my premise is that like, for that whole like the cloud was to ops, what AI would be to security. But
Right.
well, what does AI do? It's good at transformation, it's good at summarization, it's good for generation. Some of these tasks that are really good at dealing with documents. And so if security is facing a like document data problem, like how can we apply AI solutions to do some of that, some summarization, maybe textualization, and like adding other pieces of context to like security risk decisions? Because I don't know, the average AppSec person, they got a tough job. Like they got 10, 12 language frameworks. They got like probably multiple CI/CD pipelines they're trying to generate with and deal with. They got dealing with a spattering of tool vendors they're trying to figure out. Plus they, audit compliance comes around so often to find out, how things are going. And AppSec's just one small, triangle out of the whole puzzle of security.
And so, speaking of that, why do you see AppSec as the critically important, or is it just because that's the area? There's a lot of important security areas, and that just happens to be what you all are interested in.
It is something that I'm interested in, and I've been in the AppSec space for a while. But
Application security, right?
Yep, application
Not
security.
appetite security.
Sorry, or appetizers. I like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's not, for me, it's not just because I'm interested. I see that the move to like software, it's the whole like software's eating the world and like software's going everywhere. And we see the continuation of moving from just like, infrastructure to like codified things, like things that we're being applications is building out and more and more applications. So, and I think with the rise of AI assisted developers, like we're seeing the growth of code just continue to grow. Also, here's a really interesting thing. Like most of the code that you run in your system, you'll write like, let's say you write 100 lines, but like the application really is like 1,000 to 10,000 or whatever lines because of all the packages. But the thing so we really focus a lot on packages, and that's a big thing. People have bill of materials, they buy software composition analysis tools.
So where's this fit into SBOMs now?
Yeah, that's SBOMs. Yeah. So you have all that, but most of the vulnerabilities that organizations experience, 2/3 of those come out of code that you actually run, and it makes sense if you think about it. I wrote it, you reviewed it, redeployed it, maybe ran a scanner on it. Maybe that's like, it hasn't been like pressure tested by other people.
Right.
The ones that hit the news where like everybody's affected because of new bad package, those are more sensational. But what's more important for any organization, and anytime I talk to like a customer or a client, they'll always kind of say, oh, hey, can you test this? There's the OWASP top 10. Yeah, but can you test this like one thing? Then you have like how we do tenant IDs, or we have this thing. It's like, it's always something that's been a problem for them. It's something that they've like really tried to script up or like find other ways to watch for it. But it's something that's because that's where they have like those security issues, and there's specific like application there.
So one thing that you mentioned in the sort of the power of AI is SAST, which you're going to have to explain because I forgot what that is.
It's
compared to sort of off-the-shelf chat GPT and then head-to-head battle, how that turned out.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those times where you like watch a YouTube video and you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing, and it sort of it forced and kind of continued to encourage us that we were kind of building our solution on this, but taking GPT-4 and an open source, or not an open source, but a kind of an industry leading SaaS tool, which is a static application security testing tool. So it's in what kind of testing would it do? Yeah, so it takes the code base and it'll like do like abstract syntax tree parsing. It'll do load control. We'll try to map that out and try to detect patterns. So again, and do something like that. The more than regex, but that kind of type of pattern matching is the that there's it from. And this James Wickett like filmed this video where he compares
and 1,000 views, only 1,000 views.
Yeah,
right?
less than 1,000. Not many people have seen this video, which I just find really interesting. So but GPT-4 beats out like kind of the off the shelf thing. And he also points out like, look, GPT-4 said like billions and billions of dollars invested in the direct good, even though it hasn't, even in this instance, it hasn't even chosen to be the thing we want it to do. Whereas like the investment in like this SaaS tool, like Kindle is looking at you. It's like, okay, so if you compare you say that level of investment, that level of valuation, but really an untrained tool in security is able to generate that. And then, and so cool. It's neat to see that level. And that's just one aspect. That is
right.
AI is affecting one of the best.
So would there be, let's say this is a general off-the-shelf chat GPT that you're giving prompts to and putting code into. Is there something that could be developer people are working on to take that and put I don't know, through RAG or whatever it would be to put a specific lens on security?
Well, yeah, so that is, I mean, in a way, that's kind of what Dryrun Security is doing. So we're taking
I get put that to you.
Yeah,
I didn't even
yeah, no, yeah. So as you're kind of, we see a pull request coming through, and we break it up into individual code hunks, and then we apply it on several different analyzers. Many of them are backed by LLMs to do that level of analysis, and then put all that together and then return that to the developers. Like, hey, this code is risky, or this code isn't risky, and we also are able to plug those apps and keys to deal with that.
So do you make it so that it works on Llama 3 and it works on, I forget what's behind Genesis, but all the different ones, or does it not matter? You just have a chatbot type interface that sits on top of any of these?
Yeah, you don't really chat with it so much. It's sort of like, it's just in the loop, kind of pulling that out of as a GitHub app, as visited seeing that. And it does like use the foundational model, but we're not using our data, the training model, but like we're doing like what you mentioned. RAG, but then we've also
and for those who don't know what RAG is, retrieval augmented generative.
That's right, yeah.
So we were talking about that at lunch, how people often know what 3-letter acronyms mean, but they can't break it down into what the actual words are. But basically, this is taking sort of off the shelf LLMs and augmenting it with, say, stuff you have from your old company to give it extra flavor and
that's right.
And knowledge.
Yeah. Well, the approach was really because you didn't want to put your data in the pool inside of the LLM. So you would vectorize it and you would RAG it in. But now
it's actually a verb too, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's yeah. But now you can have these like larger context. And so you can put either like maybe the whole code base or we're also
some of them are huge.
Yeah. So I think the RAG thing will start to die off as like people start having the larger context from this and just taking advantage of that. And then
so wait, what would that mean? So the longer meaning they would just take their stuff and they would ingest it or enter it just by putting like the manual into it, or how would it?
Yeah, like maybe let's say you have for example, like stuff we played with, like let's say you have your application security coding standard guide or whatever,
right?
Security policy. You would just shove that in the context window along with like how much of a code you want to look at, and any like counter examples and pro examples. So you can load all that in your prompt down, and you can do a lot of that work that front without having to take the step of like vectorizing it and
okay.
But it all depends on like what kind of data you're wanting to process, how much it is, and where that fits. But
so if you put it in this context window, then does it go into a pool that other people can pull from, or you can pull from next time?
No, it's just for that prompt usage. So it's
okay.
It's really as part of your prompts. It's a prompt engineering.
Because I think that's one thing is if chatbots had cookies, right? Mm-hmm. So that you put in stuff, and so next time you don't have to re-put in the context. Like if you want things explained to fifth grader, that's your default, and that's what they do. And you told them last time you're just in X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And if you wanted to veer from that, you could say this is at an academic level, et cetera. Yeah. But this idea of amassing this knowledge about the specific thing, which I would assume is what RAG does, or does even that not do?
Well, but if you're interested in that, like I kind of mentioned this in the talk, there's an open source project called Fabric by Daniel Miessler. And he's got a bunch of like kind of pre-tuned prompts for you. And you can use those. I've also played around a lot with OpenAI's custom GPTs. So you can do exactly like you're talking about. Yeah. I give it a bunch of instructions. How I generated all those images.
Yeah.
I made my own GPT and then set it up that way.
So could you just do that by, in other words, if I just went to the prompt window and said, I'm going to be doing a presentation on DevOps and AI. I want all the illustrations to be in the style of Renaissance paintings. For this one, I want it to have something that looks like a printing press. In this one, I want...
You would stop at that point, save it off. And then when you would interact with it, you'd say like, give me a printing press, or give me a thing that does developers. So yeah, I have a couple like safety valves in there, and I try to ask it to like, make sure that people with caffeine, or I have some settings that I put in there, a little bit of tuning, but not much. It's basically what you described there, but you're kind of giving it that flow of like, what's its identity, what's its purpose, give it the steps you want it to perform. You give output examples if you have it, especially in like a text-based thing. And then we've taken some of this model and then at Dryrun Security. This is kind of like how we do code reviews. And so we're trying to train an LLM to act like human code reviewer. And so it like asks a bunch of different questions. And so it's a multi-path step. So we can really get at a lot of false positives. It's no good telling you have SQL injection on the thing that never commits to a right? Or it's no good saying you have this sort of like application security issue, whatever, like you dive a little bit deeper and you're like, oh no, they're using this framework. So like that's irrelevant. So because that's what people hate about the security tools right now is that not only are they like, kind of hard to set up sometimes, no tuning, but they generate a lot of noise. Okay. And so you start chasing those down. I've done this many times in my career where it's like I scan something and I hand it over to a developer. I'm like, we got something that's going to be great. And then they're like, yeah, that's not real. Cause like, it's a test code or it's some other spot. And it was always a little embarrassing as a security person. And you're like, yeah, I thought I should have known that. Right. But it's really hard to be in AppSec and expect to know like the intricacies of every single language out there. You may know like one or two, you don't know a dozen languages. So it's not,
sorry, but it's not like a junior security person that you're sort of mentoring. And they're doing lower level stuff. They're doing higher level stuff, right? Than a lot of the humans would. And then how do you check that to make sure that they haven't hallucinated or put some kind of wrong coding in?
Yeah. So I would say, well, it depends on what you mean by higher level or lower level. But
yeah. Because you're talking about the stuff that they're doing is, well, if you say it again, it was just the level of all the stuff that you have to do, as opposed to just sort of grunt work, low level processing. Which word was it?
Well, I would say we've kind of taken a both and approach to that. So we ask questions about the code from like, who wrote it and what it's changing and what it's touching and the impact of that stuff. We have a bunch of things around that. And then we also have like real specific, like language framework, code base, like, for like which ORM you're using in Dell.
ORM?
Yeah. It's how you interact with databases.
What does it stand for?
Yeah. Like, object relational mapping.
We'll go with that. Sounds good.
Hey, yeah. When I said it, I was like, oh, Barton can ask me what the
old red mammoth.
And I'm going to think of it like if they're more familiar.
Right, exactly. I'll put it in the show.
Yeah,
So where do you see AI and security going in the future? So you've got a company, you're heading in a direction. You've got to do both what's practical now, not theoretical.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to be doing something now that is going to get broadsided by the next step after here.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the $1 million question. But how do you think AI will develop in what vectors, so to speak?
Yeah, I've been trying to think about this, and I think that all those in the talk, I kind of shared a list of like all the documents that security has to deal with, from like changing industry standards to industry news to code policies, procedures, controls, of the tool output. I think like we'll see like more innovation in those spaces and people trying to apply AI stuff. I shared I think set GPT, which is like the ability to do like some like maybe dynamic threat modeling. I think that's a real interesting use case. I've seen some other stuff.
So what is that? That's a company or that's
That's just a free GPT that Joseph Haddix provides out there. But I think like that helps you have like those security questions. Like, cause sometimes we don't even know the questions like the there's another question.
Right. You
like,
don't know what you don't know, and you don't know how to ask about what you don't know.
That's right. And I think like we'll see.
Where ChatGPT comes in, you say, "I don't know that. Please tell me it."
Yeah, it's like this. You find it, right?
Yeah. So, and is there a community that you would go to conferences on about AI app ops?
Okay, so we're seeing more of these kind of pull up, but I haven't seen like a pure AI sec one just yet. There is one coming up.
Opportunity. There's an opportunity.
Great. There is one in June that is security focused on AI. I remember that. And then we're seeing it show up in like the B sides and all the like big Mr. Conference. So awesome.
But it's not security focused on AI as much as it is AI focused on security, right? In other words, you're using AI to work on security rather than.
And well, there are quite a few startups that have been really trying to solve that problem with like data poisoning and like how you can trust your model and like the attestation that your model gives you and like be able to assert that. And a lot of the stuff in the news we've seen so far, like going around hallucinations and other components. Hey, which by the way, humans hallucinate too.
Yeah.
So we should be clear about that.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
All right, we're back. A lot of data, a lot of hallucination here, and that's the thing is, I think we're example of running out of data there. We're running out of data in period, or we're being deluged by data, and I think that's something that we talked about earlier is just the amount of data. And once again, that's sort of why we need to be able to go through all this stuff. It's that needle in a haystack model. So, once again, we were talking about you living close to Dell.
Oh yeah, that's right. During the break, we were, so yeah, I've always lived close to Dell. Love Dell. There've been some community events there. He had me on the Dell docu-series.
Yes, it was. And for those of you who haven't seen it, you got to go check it out. And I think what was most interesting about that part was that you talked about it from a practitioner point of view who sort of grew up with it, right? You were having these issues. You're thinking, how do we get around them? Ernest gets in a car with Patrick Dubois, the godfather of DevOps in California.
Yep.
Patrick tells him about this stuff. Ernest thinks, that's kind of interesting, comes back, tells you all. Next thing you know, you guys are throwing a DevOps Days here in Austin.
Yeah.
The National Instrument.
That's right.
So how did that happen?
Well, I mean, basically, like if the rental car place hadn't given Ernest a van, we would have never met.
Interesting.
No, but we heard about him, and
we wouldn't be sitting here right now. I wouldn't even know you if it would be
else. Yeah. Thank you, rental car.
Yeah, exactly.
2010 or whatever that was, but. It's really, we were faced with challenges. We're trying to build out SaaS services at National Instruments. So it was at Velocity conference where they met.
Oh, right.
And Velocity was really trying to jam like front end and back end web developers and trying to put how do we build services that are much, much faster. It was always a really great conference put on by O'Reilly. And
was that the one that John Alspaugh did the presentation about the Brazilian
10 deploys a day?
Yeah,
at Twitter, right?
Right, which was like head exploding back then.
That's right. People were like, that can't happen, and
we get 10 in 2 years, we're happy.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So it was that model. We knew we had to build a bunch of like SaaS services, and we were looking for like approaches on how to do that. And then we were really kind of exploring like what is agile in the operations. We just done a book. We read like Visible Ops by Gene Kim.
Oh, right.
It's an earlier book, but it was a way to like how IT can move faster.
Okay. Yeah. So this was obviously
we were already really well primed to receive this information, and we had a bunch of need for it. So like DevOps just really like started to be a thing, even when people kind of denied that it was even a thing at that time. We knew like, infrastructure has to exist as pillar. Like we knew that we had to like scale quickly, to deploy quickly. You need to be like moving to the cloud. So it was really really helpful for us in our careers at that time.
Yeah, because you were in the space where you had the need, and you saw this thing as opposed to somebody from the outside who they told you about this DevOps things, and you're not kind of sure. It's sort of quite an interesting way to do it.
We have meetings because the team was formed of like, well, we'll take some devs, we'll take some ops, we'll just jam them all in the same.
Because that's how it goes. You take the developer and the opulator, and you put them together at DevOps. So
we had all these meetings where like we are way all talking past each other, and I think that's less common now. People are kind of understanding like operating.
Didn't you say in the docuseries you talked about explaining to somebody about the idea of DevOps, these people talking together, and they're like, wait, what? You guys don't talk to each other? What was that?
I think it was something like I explained it to somebody in like another industry, and I was trying to remember what that was. It was a conversation I had pretty recently around that time, but they were like, why do you not already do that? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of weird that like in technology, we built ourselves around this, waterfall flow or kind of a, left, right, like charty type of thing instead of, fast cycle time and kind of help to increase that. So
you have to have a whole movement to say, let's work together. I mean, isn't that intuitive?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what they're thinking.
That's really what they're thinking. But I think that's kind of to push back to the talk today is like, well, the cloud and like the ability to treat your, compute and storage assets just with code, whatever you think at the time. Just salt, Ansible, whatever. Like you can Terraform now if you like it, but however you're doing that, you were trying to you're able to leverage like one person to do a bunch of different stuff. You quickly be able to cycle quicker. And no longer did that ops person who like, even like, can you look at that transition? It's like a year prior, that same person was like air conditioning, like fooling and like racking,
stacking.
trying to buy from Dell, right? How long does it take? And it's, all the processes and all the team that you had to orchestrate in any sort of like mid-size, large-size business.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that, James Wickett, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. This has been Barton George, and what was your name again?
Yeah, James Wickett, thanks for
All right.
hey, enjoy
Pleasure as always.
man.
Take care.